Every time you get to the water for the first time, you've got a new lake level generally to deal with, and that does change the complexion of things. Sometimes spots where you're near the water depth and you're near the structure can have completely changed. So as an exploring technique, trolling's a great option. It means you can just get out there using your eyes to watch the contour of banks to try and suss out where shallow spots and deep spots might be, and then between them work out where there might be bait concentrations or concentrations of fish, and then start experimenting with the lures to put them through them to see what they might be interested in. The puzzle of fishing, it's what keeps you coming back again and again. Oh, there we go. Saved his play for the bait, a little rainbow. First fish for the day, in the net. That's what I like. Hands are feeling the pinch now, getting up first light in the mountains. It's been worth the drive though. Travelled down, hit Canberra last night, hire car, and first light we're out and about. New day on the water, and that's a good start. Today I'm fishing on Lake Jindabyne, and it's a place I've been coming to for about 25 years now. So I've seen the highs and the lows of this place, but I get as excited coming here today as I did in my teens. Prior to coming here, and I know how variable the fishing up here can be, so what I wanted to do was come with a bunch of options up my sleeve. So I headed over to the guys at River to Sea and spoke to Granger, and he said, "Nige, the factory doors are open." So for me, that's like being a kid let loose in the chocolate factory, and I went nuts. But at the end of it, I've come up with what I think are a flexible range of options in terms of lures and soft plastics, which means I think I can fish to whatever conditions get thrown my way. From shallow diving hard body minnows, the live minnow 65, beautifully finished lure, dives to 1.5 metres, comes complete with a range of very realistic brown trout, rainbow trout colours and others. If I find the fish are a bit deeper and still in that hard body mode, I've got the baby cranks, which will dive and have got a fantastic little wobble to them. Very realistic eyes and that rattle, I reckon I'll get them on that as well. And if I find the fish are down a little bit deep and I've got a jig for them or slow roll in the depths, I've got the glassy vibe and the baby vibe. Wonderful little lipless crankbait style lures. And if soft plastics is what they're after, the gastronomic 3.5-inch plastics are going to be the go-to lure, I think. So the pintail, and they've also come in a shad tail, that little wobbly tail, beautifully finished, and either be hopped along the bottom, rolled off the shore, or fished behind attractors. I reckon somewhere in amongst all this, I'm going to find something I can tempt some of the local predators with. It's a glorious day in the alpine waters, but having fished here for a lot of years, I know that the weather can change very dramatically within the space of an hour. So it pays when you're out here, particularly in small boats, to know what weather's going to come your way and what you're going to do as a backup plan. I like knowing which way a weather change is going to come from and what prevailing winds are going to hit me, particularly when I'm in small vessels, and make sure that you're on the right side of a big lake like this one to get back to where your boat ramp or your housing is. The other thing you want to do is make sure that you keep abreast of current regulations. In the last couple of years in New South Wales, we've had reforms to life jackets use, and they have a category now for what they call heightened risk. So that means if, for example, you're in a boat less than 4.8 metres, fishing on your own in alpine waters, you want to be wearing a life jacket at all times. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to be encumbered by big jackets all the time. There's plenty of options on the market these days. You've got the slimline PFDs. This is one of the Burke models. It goes off in the moment you hit the water, so it's self-automated. Don't necessarily need to go and pull a ripcord. That means you can happily fish. I'm comfortable. I can take my jacket on and off over a life jacket, and you get to the point where you don't even know you've got it on. It means I'm following the regulations, enjoying a good day on the water. But by the judge of this, looking up at these high-level clouds that are starting to float through now, I know the weatherman said something's coming later on, and I hope he's right, because I'm hoping the trout fishing will change. It's a little bit quiet at the moment, but we'll see in 2 or 3 hours' time, this lake could be looking very, very different. Got this little bit of a weather change coming over at the moment, and it's a lot of trout anglers that fish the Snowy Mountains a lot. You get excited when you see it, because the fishing can go from okay to awesome in the matter of minutes. There's something about that barometer moving that just gets fish G'd right up. And I've changed tact a little bit from where obviously the weather was a bit more stable and the fish were a bit harder to come by. was covering a lot of ground with trolling and covering different depths of water. Now what I've done is push right up into the shallows. This is a fair bet with this cloud cover. I can see by the banks here that's a relatively shallow area. My sound is confirming that. 2 to 3 metres of water, patchy weed and rubble. And it's a prime place for fish to get up here and feed. And by sneaking in on the drift with that wind behind me and punching long casts out, the minnow style lure, it's a fair bet I'm going to get it in front of a few fish that are up here looking for one thing, and that's a feed under the cover of a bit of weather. Oh, yep, gotcha. Little fish. Oi, salmon. Lovely. One of the salmon stockies, looks like a very recent one within Jindabyne. And away we go. Off to grow bigger. Yes. Came and bumped it. Gave me a little nudge and said, I'm here. Twitch, twitch. I gave it that pause. And he went, that's it, you're mine. He's a bit bigger than when I first thought. He's all right. Oh yes, that's a lovely mountain trout. Aren't they magnificent creatures? They love nothing better than just looking for the best source of protein, and that very often means they're up here in these shallows chasing yabbies and any other crustacean and bait fish they can find, which gives them this great condition. And if you can be there when they're active, when they love coming under this. We've got very low light at the moment, which means they're not worried about something else eating them. And they know there's so much food up in these shallows that they're up here and they're active. It's a case of then of sneakily using the wind to your advantage, getting lures in front of them, and the results can be very, very attractive. Places like Jindabyne, you get a lot of these sandstone boulders hanging off the shoreline, and it does help to be using those eyes to spot colour changes in the water, because if you target them with well-placed casts, you can very often pick out some of those predators which are using that structure to sit in there and pick off an easy meal. Always be using the eyes. There we go, I've got a nice brownie here. Doing his death roll is one thing browns do a whole lot of. They'll get to the boat and they start to roll themselves, and I hate it when they do it because it's the easiest time to lose a fish. If you can, just let them have their head, almost drop a bit of slack to them, let them have their head so you can get them coming back to you and the boat. And here's the result of watching what the weather's doing, picking a lure that is going to promote interest in the local fish population. And look at that, he's well matched. That lure, that's the River to Sea 65 live minnow, and it is so much the part of the bait fish that you're going to find in these parts. He's almost exact same colours of the coloration of this fish. I'm using a very light spin outfit, which means it's going to make the job easy for me. 2 to 4 kilo Venom Berkeley rod, 4 pound strand microfuse braid, extremely fine diameter, so lets me cast at a mile. And I'm using 3 to 4 metres of 6 pound fluorocarbon leader. Very simple outfit, very light, easy to use, and it just makes it a pleasure to just initiate big drifts through likely looking country and just keep this lure working in those zones. Rolling it, twitching it, pausing it. Very engaging fishing and very exciting when it pays off. Tussocks, rocks, the weed hanging off it, and the wind pushing straight into it. That's got to be the spot where you'd find one, you'd think. Get him down. He's playing up for us. Sometimes spots just reek of fish. You look at them and you think, yeah, all the signs point to something being here. You've got to follow your instincts. It doesn't matter what sort of fishing you do. So often we ignore that voice in our head, I think, going, all the signs point there. Go and do your best. Oh, come on, just lead him in the net. There we go. Now that is fish that's gaining a bit of condition. Interestingly, with this one, you can see that suffered some of the wounds of spawn time. He's getting over them as he's back in the lake now, getting some condition, but on either side, you can see where he or she's knocked herself around in the rocks fighting that spawning urge. It's quite brutal when you do see them charging up and down the rivers doing their spawning thing, how much instinct plays a part. They will brutalise themselves to get to where they think they've got to be. The forces of nature are pretty strong. That's a lovely fish, and that lure has certainly counted on the forces of nature playing a part there. Aggression and bait fish imitation. And this one's gone, you're mine, and got a bit more than it bargained for. Always helps when you're retrieving to not leave too much slack in your line. I think too often we leave this, I can see anglers sometimes leaving this braid whipping around in the wind. What that means is on that, very often when you get that bite and that critical pause, if you've got too much slack in the line, you're going to risk throwing hooks. I very much like when I'm hard body fishing like this, keep that rod tip low to the water, get that lure working to its optimal depth, and then never let too much slack sit there. If you are going to pause it, just wind up, let the lure sit in spot, but wind up that little bit of slack so you're in contact. And very often, when that line suddenly snaps tight on a fish, you're connected to them straight away. They don't have that extra little bit of advantage of slack line to get a head start and try and throw a hook on you. Oh yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. Come out of that bank and belted that. Something exciting about when you're hard body fishing and you get that twitching and pausing right, fish hit it so aggressively that it stops you in your shoes, and I think that's the exciting thing about it. You get whipped back to what's going on by a fish that has other things in mind. Oh, beautiful fish. Look at the colour of this thing. I think, oh, look at that. In prime, snowy mountain lake condition. You can see how he's come up and eaten that. I've paused it, bumped it once, a couple of rips, I've got about another metre and I paused it again, and I reckon this fella's come up underneath it and smashed that. Really pulled the rod out of my hands. It was great. On the top. It was a bit bigger when he first whacked that. He had a fair bit of going in. Woo! Oh yeah, playing the game. That's a lot of fun. And if you got any doubt the trout like the river to see live minnow, have a look at that. I don't think he could have really chomped on that any better if he'd tried. Evening setting on the lakes, the water temperature, the outside temperature is getting cool. Trout are playing. So it's all good. You don't mind getting cold when you're catching fish. There we go. The end of a fantastic day fishing Lake Jindabyne in the Snowy Mountains. Fabulous tourist destination. Chockers with browns, rainbow trout, salmon. Get to check out the snow in the background while you're catching beautifully marked fish like this. You never know exactly what you're going to get, and it does pay to be prepared when you come to these parts, because you hear those reports before you come and you get all ready to do one thing, and you'll come up here and find things have changed, which means I like to have a few tackle boxes with different options. Have your little diving hard bodies, a few deep options, give you soft plastics with the paddle tails to go, as well as those lipless crankbaits, because some days that's all I want, just to have a few of those different tricks of the trade up your sleeve. Can be the difference between struggling and going home having had a great time. And I think I'm going to get this guy in the water, leave a good memory, and hit the road home. Aren't they beautiful fish?
It's Bill Klassen here from The Fishing Show, and if you like this instructional video and want to learn more, it's simple. Go to fishingshowtv.com.au and see a whole host of additional videos.